More than 100 Russian motorcycles, buggies, and quad bikes advanced together with tanks and armored personnel carriers in an assault designed to put sudden pressure on Ukraine's defensive line. At first, the size of the attack was what drew attention. But the most important detail was something else. Ukraine appeared to understand the movement long before the heavy armor reached the trenches. A Russian motorcycle group pushed along a forest road with a simple task. It had to find a usable route, test the flank, and help open the way for the tanks and APCs waiting behind it. From the ground, this looked like a fast and low-cost method of probing the line. It was mobile, flexible, and difficult to stop with traditional weapons. But from above, the picture was completely different. Ukrainian FPV teams were already watching the movement and turning the road into a target map. As soon as the path became visible, the entire assault began to lose the element that it depended on most: concealment. Snipers could prepare at the right choke point. Artillery could begin striking the approach route. FPV drones could later dive into a tank, an APC, a BMP, or a group of infantry that had been forced to stop in open ground. That is why this engagement is more than another video of motorcycles being destroyed near the front line. The bigger story is the way Ukraine is attacking the structure of the Russian assault itself. The first riders, the scouting screen, the armored vehicles behind them, and the infantry meant to follow all become part of one chain. Once the first link is seen from the air, every next link becomes easier to predict. So the real question is not only why Russia used so many light vehicles. The real question is what happens when speed, armor, and numbers are all placed under a battlefield sky filled with FPV drones. Russian motorcycle groups are not just small raiding parties. In many cases, they are an early sign that a larger attack is forming behind them. Before tanks, APCs, and BMPs enter the most dangerous zone, Russian commanders need to know where the Ukrainian defense may be vulnerable. Heavy armor can bring weapons, protection, and infantry, but it also creates a large and visible target. Once a tank or armored vehicle moves near a road, a village edge, or a tree line, Ukrainian drones can identify it quickly, and artillery can begin shaping the area before the vehicle reaches its intended position. This is where motorcycles have become useful for Russian assault planning. They move faster than infantry on foot and can slip through narrow routes where armored vehicles may have trouble. A small group can rush through a forest track, cross a broken field road, or move along a tree line to see whether Ukrainian forces are observing the area. If there is no immediate fire, the route may seem suitable for the next wave. If Ukraine responds, Russian commanders can at least identify where the defense is active. But that same method carries a serious weakness. The motorcycle group is not only checking the road, it is also revealing the likely direction of the coming assault. A rider may believe that speed protects him, but fast movement creates a pattern that is easy to follow from above. The quicker the group pushes through a narrow road, the clearer its route becomes on the FPV feed. Drone operators can see where the riders slow down, where they turn, where they bunch together, and where the terrain forces them into a single line. On the ground, a road under trees may feel hidden. Broken tracks, bushes, dust, and noise can make the riders feel as if they are moving through cover. But from the air, that same route can look like a marked corridor leading toward Ukrainian positions. The Russian plan depends on surprise. The motorcycle troops must reach a useful point before Ukraine can react. They may be searching for a flank, a gap between strong points, or a covered route that heavier vehicles can later exploit. Their job is to create the first picture for the force behind them. If they succeed, tanks and APCs can advance with greater confidence. The problem begins when Ukraine already has that picture first. Once FPV drones detect the motorcycles, the riders lose the most valuable part of their mission. They are no longer an invisible scouting element. They become an early warning. Their direction tells Ukraine where pressure may come from. Their spacing reveals how organized the group is. Their road suggests where tanks, APCs, and BMPs might try to follow. A small motorcycle patrol can suddenly expose the outline of a much larger attack. When the route has already been seen from above, Ukraine no longer has to guess where the attack is coming from. It only has to decide where the attack should be allowed to enter the kill zone. Once Ukrainian FPV drones lock onto the motorcycle group, speed begins to work against the riders. The side that sees the route first gains the initiative before the firefight even begins. Ukrainian drone operators can watch the motorcycles move along the track, estimate the distance between the riders, and identify every place where the group has to slow down. They can see the bends in the forest road, the tight gaps between the trees, and the spots where the riders have no space to spread out. That live view gives sniper teams time to prepare calmly instead of reacting in panic. The motorcycle group may still believe it is moving too fast to be caught. The riders may keep close to the tree line, push their engines hard, and try to reach the next turn before Ukrainian fire can answer. But the problem is already above them. FPV drones do not need to destroy the whole group immediately. They only need to keep the route visible and send the right picture to the shooters waiting on the ground. This is where the ambush becomes truly dangerous. A sniper team can select a firing position at the edge of the trees, on slightly higher ground, or at an angle that cuts across the road. That position is not chosen by chance. It is chosen because the drone has shown where the motorcycles must pass, where they cannot turn easily, and where the first hit will create the greatest disruption. The opening shot is not only about one rider, it is about breaking the movement of the entire group. If the lead motorcycle is hit or loses control, the riders behind it have only seconds to react. One slows down, another tries to go around the wreck, a third turns back toward the trees. Someone else may abandon the bike and run for cover. The group may still have men and vehicles, but it no longer moves like a single unit. It becomes a collection of separate decisions made under fear, engine noise, dust, and confusion. Ukrainian FPV drones continue watching as the group breaks apart. They can see who is trying to regroup, who is crawling toward cover, and which direction the remaining riders may use to escape. This matters because the ambush does not end with the first shot. The fight continues through observation. Every movement creates another clue, and every clue can guide the next sniper shot, the next artillery adjustment, or the next FPV strike. Russian troops may try to return fire, but their response often comes too late. If they do not know where the sniper is positioned, every burst toward the tree line is only a guess. The sound of engines, shouting, and incoming fire makes the situation harder to control. The riders who were sent forward to locate a weak point in Ukraine's line are now trying to survive inside an area that has already been prepared against them. This is why sniper fire can have an effect far beyond the number of casualties it causes. It destroys timing. It forces Russian riders to react before they understand the battlefield. It takes a mobile reconnaissance force and turns it into exposed targets that Ukraine can continue tracking from above. But stopping the first layer does not always stop the entire Russian assault. Tanks, APCs, BMPs, infantry and support vehicles may still move forward to rescue the situation or maintain pressure on the Ukrainian line. When the motorcycle screen is broken, the heavier Russian force enters the battle with a dangerous disadvantage. The vehicles behind the riders may still be ready to move, but the route ahead is no longer clean. The first layer that was supposed to test the ground has already been exposed. Now the armor must advance without knowing how much Ukraine has seen and how much of the road has been prepared for fire. The goal of the mechanized push is clear. Tanks are supposed to bring direct fire forward. APCs and BMPs are supposed to carry infantry closer to Ukrainian positions. Support vehicles help maintain movement and keep the assault supplied. If the route works, Russian troops can reach a tree line, a village edge, or a trench approach before Ukraine has enough time to stop them. That is how a small probe can become a serious attack. But the plan begins to weaken when the scouting group has already been hit. Russian armored vehicles may still follow the same road or field track, but that path is now under Ukrainian attention. Commanders may not know which bend is watched, which open patch is covered by artillery, or where FPV teams are waiting for the next target. The tanks have armor, but they do not have full awareness. As the first vehicles roll forward, Ukrainian drones can start reading the shape of the column. They do not have to attack at once. They can watch the lead tank, the spacing between vehicles, and the way APCs and BMPs adjust behind it. If the road narrows near a tree line or crosses an exposed approach toward a village, the convoy has fewer options. It must slow down, hold formation, or risk moving into mined, watched, or artillery-covered ground. Artillery becomes most effective when the column loses freedom of movement. A shell does not have to hit every vehicle directly to change the assault. It can strike the road ahead, the edge of a crossing point, or the area where the formation is forced to compress. Once the lead vehicle slows, the rest of the group begins to lose timing. A tank may try to push forward, an APC may stop behind it. A BMP may drift toward cover without knowing whether that cover is safe. This is where FPV strikes can cut deeper into the formation. A drone may dive into an APC that stops for only a few seconds. Another may target a BMP that has separated from the line. A third may aim for a vehicle turning away from the road. One immobilized machine can change the entire attack. The next vehicle cannot simply pass if the road is too narrow. The vehicle behind it may stop as well, and the column begins to bunch together. What was intended to be a moving armored fist turns into a line of targets under an open sky. At that point, artillery has a clearer area to strike, and FPV operators can choose targets with less pressure. The infantry inside the APCs face a separate crisis. If they remain inside a damaged vehicle, they risk being hit by a follow-up strike. If they dismount too early, they are pushed into open ground before reaching the position they were supposed to assault. Once they leave the vehicle, they lose the protection of armor, and Ukrainian drones can track every attempt to move toward cover. Ukraine does not need to destroy the entire Russian force in one strike. It can break the first movement, separate infantry from armor, and keep every part of the assault under pressure until the attack loses its shape. The first task is to slow the front of the column. If the lead vehicle continues moving, the vehicles behind it can still follow the plan. But once the first tank, APC or BMP is forced to stop, the whole formation begins to change. Drivers reduce speed, crews look for cover. Infantry inside the vehicles wait for orders that no longer match the situation outside. This is the moment Ukraine is trying to create. FPV drones become the main eyes of the battle during this phase. They watch the route, mark where vehicles are gathering, and identify the points where Russian armor has little space to maneuver. A road beside a tree line, a narrow village approach, or a tight crossing becomes one of the most dangerous places on the map, once drone operators hold it in view. Artillery then turns that information into pressure. It does not need to destroy every target directly. Its job is to make movement difficult and force the Russian formation into bad choices. Shells landing near the route can stop vehicles from pushing forward, force infantry to dismount early, or push drivers into ground already being watched by FPV teams. The FPV strikes arrive at the moments when speed and precision matter most. An APC stuck on the road becomes a target before its troops can reorganize. A tank turning away exposes its movement to the drone operator. A BMP left behind near a tree line can be hit before the crew understands whether the next threat is artillery, a drone, or fire from the ground. This sequence attacks the assault from multiple directions at once. Armor loses timing, infantry loses protection, support vehicles lose safe access to the front. The Russian force still has weapons, but it no longer has a clean rhythm. Once that rhythm is gone, the battle begins to shift from Russian attack to Ukrainian control. When the Russian force is slowed and divided, Ukraine can begin a local counterattack. This does not always look like a large, dramatic charge. Often it starts with artillery suppressing the area where Russian troops are trying to hold. FPV drones keep watching groups that are pulling back, hiding, or trying to bring supplies forward. That constant view helps Ukrainian units decide when the next move is ready. Mechanized infantry can then move closer to clear the ground. APCs or infantry fighting vehicles bring Ukrainian troops toward the contested area, while the FPV feed shows where Russian soldiers may still be hiding. Clearing teams move through houses, trenches, shelters, and tree lines because terrain still has to be controlled by soldiers on the ground. This point is important. FPV drones can find targets and guide strikes, but they do not hold territory by themselves. Artillery can break a position, but it does not confirm every corner of a village edge. Infantry and mechanized units still have to enter the area, remove the remaining threat, and prevent Russian troops from turning a small foothold into a stronger position. The lesson is bigger than one ambush or one column. The same logic is now shaping some of the hottest directions of the front, especially around the Dnipropetrovsk direction and the Lyman sector. These areas show that this is no longer only a story about one failed Russian attack. It is becoming a wider lesson about mechanized warfare under a sky controlled by drones. In the Dnipropetrovsk direction, Russia is trying to turn small gains into broader pressure. A short advance, a tree line, or the edge of a village can have value because it gives Moscow something to point to on the map. If Russian troops hold even a small foothold, that position becomes a message. It suggests movement, pressure, and a possible new route for the next attack. Ukraine understands why these footholds matter, so it treats them as threats before they become strongpoints. The response is active defense. FPV teams watch the approach routes. Artillery strikes groups moving forward. Infantry clears the ground before Russian soldiers settle into shelters, trenches, or damaged buildings. The goal is not only to push one group back. The goal is to prevent Russia from building a platform for the next assault. Around Lyman, the same problem appears on a larger scale. Russia tries to generate pressure from several directions at once. Motorcycle teams scout possible routes. Infantry pushes into wooded ground. Tanks bring direct fire. APCs and BMPs carry troops closer to the line. Artillery tries to force Ukrainian defenders to keep their heads down, while crossings and river approaches become key movement routes. On paper, this looks powerful. But every layer creates another burden. More tanks need more fuel. More APCs need safer roads. More infantry needs evacuation routes. More directions of attack require stronger communication. When all these parts move together, they create more signals for Ukrainian FPV teams to observe. That is the central weakness of a large mechanized push in this environment. Size brings strength, but it also brings visibility. A single motorcycle group leaves a route pattern. A tank column leaves dust, heat, engine noise, and movement across open ground. An APC group moving toward a village edge reveals where infantry may dismount. Once drone operators see the first movement, Ukraine can begin shaping the fight before Russian forces reach the decisive point. The Russian plan is built around speed and pressure. The idea is to push several layers forward, force Ukraine to react in many places at once, and find one weak point before the defense can adjust. Ukraine is trying to do the opposite. It slows each movement, cuts the assault into smaller pieces, and strikes the parts before they connect. If FPV drones see the first element, artillery can hit the route. If motorcycles reveal the road, snipers can break the rhythm. If armor follows the same path, drones can isolate and destroy the vehicles that stop. The battle becomes less about one dramatic breakthrough and more about who controls each stage of movement. The side that is seen first often loses the ability to decide what happens next. This is the larger lesson from the Dnipropetrovsk direction and Lyman. Russia is trying to accelerate the war through mechanized pressure. Ukraine is trying to slow that pressure through FPV observation, artillery timing, and rapid clearing actions. One side is trying to create momentum, the other is trying to turn that momentum into exposure. So the question now is clear. Will Russia find a better way to protect its mechanized assaults, hide its routes, and coordinate its different layers under drone observation? Or will it continue accepting heavy losses because pressure on the front remains more important than the cost of each failed push? From a distance, this battle may look like a simple ambush on a Russian motorcycle group moving through a forest road. But the deeper story is much more serious. Those motorcycles were not just moving alone, they were the first layer of a larger assault chain. The motorcycles searched for a route. Tanks, APCs, and BMPs were supposed to turn that route into a real attack. Infantry was supposed to use that movement to reach Ukrainian positions. But Ukraine is trying to cut that chain at the beginning. FPV drones detect the route. Snipers break the rhythm of the scouting group. Artillery hits the approach areas. FPV drones strike the vehicles that slow down or separate. Infantry then clears the ground before Russian troops can turn a temporary position into a foothold. That is why this battle is not only about burned motorcycles or damaged armored vehicles. It points to a larger change in modern war. Speed and armor are no longer enough if the enemy sees the movement first. Numbers do not automatically create pressure if every route is watched. A probe does not help if it reveals the assault before it protects it. In the coming weeks, Russia may continue using motorcycles, tanks, APCs, and BMPs because it still needs pressure in hot sectors like the Dnipropetrovsk direction and Lyman. But if Ukraine keeps its FPV and artillery network fast enough, every mechanized push can be broken apart before it becomes a breakthrough. So the question remains open. Will Russia adapt in time, or is Ukraine turning every major movement into a target from above? Share your thoughts in the comments. If this kind of battlefield analysis helps you understand the war more clearly, like the video, share it, and subscribe to Military Force for more updates on weapons, battles, and the future of modern warfare.